That
W-
is that is peak uh probably 2012 skinny Los Angeles
Hungry.
e emo e-bass just for you and all the people there rocking the I love that Deftone shirt. I've still
That's a
got it
great
somewhere.
shirt. Is this a
And
motel? Are you guys on tour in this picture? Or is this?
that is actually at the Roosevelt on Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, you can't get more Los Angeles than that shit, man.
Ah, look at that.
We were making Amaryllis at the time, and yeah, I'd gotten into self photography somewhat,
Is what's
and
the thing? Is that like a handle on the bottom of it?
yeah, that's I was doing a bunch of video stuff too, so that's a handle for video. And funny enough, that's a Nikon D90 camera, and it's old as hell now, but I actually just bought new batteries for it, so I'm gonna resurrect it somewhat. Um, but anyway, I'll count you down to disappointment here. Three, two, one. Yeah, there we go.
Ugh,
This is what you get now.
the worst.
Uh, uh, I am super jet lagged, man.
Did you get
I
home last night or the day before?
I got home the night before, but yeah, I try to keep my schedule, waking up early and doing all of that stuff. But I was in Los Angeles for a week, and uh, I was waking up early, but that's late here, so I just got on. I got on that later schedule. So, uh, yeah, but it was fun, man. Got a lot of good stuff accomplished for what I'm working on. I got to be in a room with it's really interesting. I spend a lot of time being creative in this room by myself, like
Yeah,
a good bit of the time. And it was nice walking into a room full of, I was in an art studio, but it wasn't just an art studio. There was a podcast studio in the facility.
yeah.
There's a couple of other things going on. I wish I could remember this guy's last name. His first name is Greg, and he's an actor. And you've seen him in a ton of stuff, and I've seen him in a ton of stuff. I just can't remember his last name. I feel awful, but he owns the space, the building. Um, but but then my friend Rob's art studio is in there, and he's got himself plus four or five apprentices in there. These 20 something individuals. They're younger, and it's just nice being in a creative space like that where you have a ton of people uh being creative all at the same time. And it was really refreshing. And now that I'm home, I feel like I need that again. So I'm just sitting in here trying to figure out, do I need to get five or six apprentices to hang out in here with me?
You have Kelly and the horses with like painting stuff in the background. They're
Oh
all.
yeah, 1000%. Yeah, I'm just gonna bring the horses in here and Kelly, and that'll be what I do.
How
So
often does Rob paint? Like, is that like a? I mean, for people who don't know Rob Pryor, how prolific he is, and he's like one of the few people who can paint with simultaneously two different pictures, right?
well, not I've never seen him do two different pictures. He uses both hands to paint one picture, though. He's ambidextrous, so he's in here with two brushes. One brush might have one color, one has another, or something like that. And
Yeah.
he's in here. Uh, it's Rob Pryor. If anyone wants to look him up, it's uh, uh, Prior Pryor, and I think his Instagram is prior to. That's the number two. Prior to art. I believe is what that is. Um, but just you know, an astonishingly talented human
Yeah.
being and just a great dude, man. He and I have an awful lot in common with certain things, and I've known him for wow, I've probably known him for 18, well, not 18 years, 15 years at this point, maybe something like that. And but really just in the last um 2 years he and I have grown really close through some things. So um, it's just yeah, man. It's also really interesting having friends in different artistic disciplines, yeah, and drawing on those the way they do things and kind of bringing them into my world. something really interesting happened on that trip as well. We're supposed to be there working on some things I'm working on, and he got sort of I won't say blindsided, but kind of some last minute things came up, and he was actually got commissioned to paint 3 pictures of Floyd Mayweather, and then go to Las Vegas and paint live at Floyd's party in Las Vegas, like at Super Bowl week
Yeah.
party, and so uh, he ended up having to work on one of those Floyd paintings one day when he and I were supposed to be working on some other stuff, and uh, my initial reaction to that was to be a little frustrated. I'm there to do this thing, and but he can't help it. He's got things to
Right. Right.
do, and I did something very interesting. I don't know if we talked about it on one of the previous podcasts or not, but I've been working on a lot of different things and feel like I'm getting uh, things are starting to become chaotic in a bad way for me with those things, trying to keep everything together. And I just turned everything over to God, right? I was like, just,
Yeah.
hey man, I need help with this. I'll take the steps and I'll do the work, but you got to help me with it. And so in that moment when I was starting to get frustrated, I remembered that I have turned over the control to a higher power, and so in that moment it was really interesting the way I calmed down, and I just went, I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now. I'm supposed to be here, and this is happening for a reason. And so what I did was I pulled up a chair behind him and just watched him paint. And it dawned on me in that moment that he's seen me play live more than a dozen times,
Yeah.
maybe I mean, and I've never watched him work. I've never watched him paint. And so I got to sit there and watch my friend, pull out of thin air this amazing work of art of an amazing athlete. And uh, in that moment watching him paint, because Rob, when he paints, man, it's a full body event. Like
Yeah.
he's doing this stuff, but he's he's he'll close his eyes too, man. He'll close his eyes and paint, and he won't mess anything up. Like he can see it in his mind's eye where he's supposed to go with these lines and what he's supposed to be doing, or where the colors belong without even looking at it. So he'll be painting, and then he'll put his head down and he'll do this, and he'll look back up, and then he'll kind of like he'll spin around. It's very,
Yeah.
very, very playful and like childlike. And uh so that was the first lesson, was watching him do that and really thinking to myself, and by the way, at the same time I had one of his apprentices off to the side painting something completely different. And I was like kind of in certain moments going, one of his apprentices name is Naomi. She's super talented. Naturally, all of them are. But she's over here working on something else. So I'm like watching her do something and watching him kind of back and forth. And it really reminded me to be more artistic when I'm working. Like I get caught up in uh the thing I'm working on has to be great, right? The thing I'm doing has
Yeah.
to be amazing, and I'm pushing myself, and it almost it has a tendency to I can become too analytical with it. Uh, so that was the first lesson. The second lesson was that night, and Sanjay was with me on this trip, by the way, uh, documenting things and taking pictures and video and whatnot. But so they invited his Rob's wife Bev invited Sanjay and I to their house for dinner, and they have two twin girls, two little girls, and I think they're 8 or 9 years old. And this was the most important lesson I got that I have gotten in a long time, but definitely the most important lesson of that week was um, these two little girls they wanted to play piano for me, so they each went in and improvised on the piano.
Yep.
And what was interesting is they're twins, but one improvised these beautiful things, and the other one improvised darker things, and it was very interesting and it was very real. Like, I mean, like they came from two different planets, what one played and what the other one played. And then they wanted to show us, they have these, and I don't know what they're called, but they're sort of these drums. They sound like steel drums, sort of, but I call them drums. They're not traditionally drums. They're these metal, uh, uh,
Kettle.
spherical metal things, and you hit the notes on them, and they have doom, 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 doom,
Yeah,
doom,
I
doom,
know what you're
doom,
talking
doom,
about.
doom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they wanted to play those, and they showed us that. And then one of them said, "I want to play my cello for you." And she broke out her cello, and but here's the thing, it's not, she's just learning, right? She's just started cello. So she's just going, rank, 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 ding, 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 ding. And in that moment, I told her, I said, "I've never played a cello before. Could I play your cello?" That is so not like me, by the way, because I want to be great at everything I do, and I don't want anybody to see any of my flaws, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I grabbed this cello and I made some terrible noises with it in front of these little girls, and they loved it. They loved the fact that I was playing the cello. The ultimate lesson in all this was, I looked at Rob at some point and I just said, "Man, I've forgotten how to be a child." When I'm doing, I mean, I have this medium that I get to work in of music, and sometimes I get to work in other mediums like writing or maybe photography or something like that. I paint. We talked about some of the
Yeah.
painting stuff, even though I'm terrible at it. But I've forgotten how to be childlike with it, and just they didn't care. The interesting thing about the piano was they were playing random notes, but in those random notes, they would all of a sudden these themes would arise, and these chord changes and key changes would come in that were, if it had been intentional, would be considered genius or brilliant, right?
Right.
So and I'm not saying that it wasn't intentional, but it didn't seem intentional anyway. They were just doing this, playing freely. And I just looked, I thought to myself, I said, when is the last time I sat down at a piano and just played random notes without any intention whatsoever? I'm always trying to find some chord structure and melody over
Yeah.
this chord thing. And it's things I've done before. I feel like I sit down and just play the same chords over and over again. And I've forgotten how to be a child. I've forgotten how to that I have a sandbox that I can play in professionally, and I've forgotten how to play in it,
Is
And
that childlike behavior only attached to the music realm you're in? Because like when we have a day off, and you're one of the first people that, hey, let's go rent a car and clear outside a glacier, maybe get collapsed upon, or get lost in the woods. Like
right.
everything we do outside of music, you're the first one to kind of push the boundaries of, oh, there's a trail, might not be a trail, but let's go walk it. We have an hour. But when
Yeah.
it comes to music, it seems like you get kind of like boxed into your own corner.
Yeah, it's because I take it too seriously, I think. I mean, it is serious. At the end of the day, it is serious to me. I mean, it is, I do want it. It is, and the rest of the band, we want to deliver great things to our fans, right?
Yeah.
And to ourselves. We want to prove it to ourselves first, and then the fans get to enjoy it. Um, but in that, I get too brooding and too serious about it, man. And it was a really, really, yeah. And I don't do that with other things. Um, just funny enough, Sanjay and we were driving up on Mulholland Drive the other night, trying to find a lookout spot that we could film some stuff, looking down over the city.
The
But
sex scene. Yep.
yep, that's what it was. Second one of the night
Yeah.
too. We were both a little spent, but we were really making an effort.
Yep.
Um, but Los Angeles just had a bunch of rain, and so not I guess it's important to the story. Mulholland Drive is really long. It runs from one side of the city to the other, basically, and it starts out paved, and then it turns to a dirt road up in the hills, up in the mountains, and then turns to paved again, and goes down into Hollywood. And we got up one side and got into the dirt part, and it started. We could tell that the rain had washed out a bunch of stuff on the road, and I mean, the minute Sanjay saw the first rut, he was driving. He's like, "Oh man, we got to turn around." And I was just like, "You have no spirit, man. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go." And I kept pushing him to drive further and further and further. We're in an SUV, and he's going, "I don't think it'll make it. I don't think it'll make it." I'm like, "Dude, I'm so ashamed of you right now. I was just
Yeah.
like, we did finally get to a point where even I was like, it's probably not a good idea if we go any further
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we arrived at the point where I thought we shouldn't go any further, and we there's no one up there. I mean, there are no cars coming or anything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes this car, and I mean, this dude is tearing
Hell yeah.
through this dirt and mud but it's an Amazon van. This guy's just like wheels around us and keeps going, and I'm like, man, I suck. I stopped too early. Here's this Amazon guy. He's just like he
Right.
doesn't care.
Bombing it.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, man, like having that it, those girls and Rob, because that's in their DNA from him, and Bev, his wife, is also extremely talented. She's a really great writer and um amongst other things. But so they come by it justly, but watching them just not give a shit about who's standing behind them listening to them. They're proud of everything they're doing, even, you know, and again, there is no good and bad in that scenario, right? They're playing these beautiful things that are just coming from a child's mind, and it's amazing. And and like I say, watching Rob paint, it's the same thing. There is some it's almost like he becomes uncaged in that moment. Not in a maniac kind of way, but like, you know, all of the that's what he's there to do. All of the pressures of anything else go away, and he's just
Right.
doing his thing. And so it was just a good lesson. It was a good lesson to learn to be more artistic and learn to and try to be more childlike and uh not get so stressed out about making the things I make, whether it's a painting or a Shinedown record or whatever. Now, if it will be, it remains to be seen if I can carry that with me and moving forward. But there was a time when I didn't care about any of that stuff. I just made things, and even in my professional career, I just made things, and I always want them to be good, and I was always worried about that to an extent. And but yeah, that was I mean, that was the big spiritual takeaway from my Los Angeles trip. And
Right.
Sanjay and I talked about it a bunch, because his daughter, he talks about how she's the same way. And I don't have any kids, so maybe that's why it was so
Yeah.
jarring to me to walk into that space and but it reminded me too, like that I used to be that way because they were playing in the hallway and they were pretending, and they the hallway was a river and they were on this boat, and they have this giant stuffed alpaca, you know and they put the alpaca on the back of the boat, and the boat is a blanket, and they're paddling down this river. One of them's pulling the other one, and it was just this play that they were doing, and
Right.
it's like, man, what happened to us?
Yeah.
you know
Did you ever have like when you were becoming an upcoming musician and doing all that stuff? Did you ever have any like roadblocks along the way from like a family or someone that kind of looked at that going, "What are you doing? Like, why aren't you doing military? Why aren't you becoming a full time, whatever, or something else?" Like, was there any type of like family, or were they just like fully supportive from the onset?
No, I don't remember ever being told not to be.
Who you're meant to be?
I don't think so. I mean, there was obviously trepidation when I decided that I wasn't going to go to school or go into the military or do
Yeah.
anything like that, and I was going to go try to pursue music because that's a 100% failure rate, and they didn't want to see me fail. I guess not fully 100%, 99.999% failure rate. Um, so But no, man, I think, well, look, my dad was strict. My dad was super strict. He was I've talked about it before. I don't know, some people might know this, but he was a naval commander. He went to military school when he was 14 years old, then went to Annapolis, then went right into Vietnam in the Navy.
Oof.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so, well, I guess he had been in, my dad was born in 1936. So, um, he was older when I was born. My dad was almost 40 when I was born. So he had already lived a whole life and had a whole career before we ever even came along. And he was still in the Navy, when I was a kid. He was in the Navy for 10 more years, 10, 11 years after I was born, and then got out. But he was super strict, but he had a playful side as well. I just don't think I saw it as much as my sisters did because I was the boy and I was the oldest.
Yeah.
Um, but I was uh I was scared of my dad. I was a kid, man. So maybe that's it too. Maybe I had this fear of my dad that my sisters didn't have. It's interesting at his when we were preparing for his funeral, and the minister who was going to be doing the service was asking. He had the whole family, well, my sisters and I, on a Zoom call, and was just wanting to get, everybody, say one word answers. What comes to mind when I say, when you think about your dad in this way, what's something that comes to mind? It didn't have to be one word, but it was just, we were all throwing out things that reminded us of, reminded us of my dad. And I had thought about speaking at my dad's funeral, but I hadn't really seriously thought about it. Like it seemed like something I should do. I should say something at my dad's funeral.
Yep.
And I was thinking about that even before he passed away, like leading up to him passing away. Uh, but I kind of had decided not to. But it was interesting because all of the answers my sisters gave about my dad, and we'd never done anything like this, were nothing like the answers I would give.
Oh,
It was completely different. They, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I think it's just a father son thing rather than a father daughter thing. I have three younger sisters, so um, everything with them was, give me some words to describe your dad. It was, protector and uh, uh, loving father and blah. It was very Pollyanna, if that makes sense. There was a movie called Pollyanna, and she
yes.
viewed everything through rose-colored glasses, right? But everything from there, everything with my dad was for me when I thought about it was stern, strict, you know, leader,
Yeah.
these types of things. And so I realized in that moment that I had to speak at his funeral. I had to say that was the moment that where I was like, well, none of the things that that I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about my dad are coming across. And so I called the minister the next day, and he's a guy that I know very well. He was in the church I grew up in. He was a few years ahead of me. Um, but I knew him pretty well. So I called him the next day and I said, "Hey man, is it okay if I say something?" I said, "It won't be long. I just want to get up and say it." Of course, the way I talk, it was 25 minutes. I
Hell
sat
yeah.
up, I talked about my dad for 25 minutes. I knew everybody wanted to leave,
Yeah.
probably. But I thought it had to be done. So just interesting. I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but it was just interesting that my sister's memory of my father was a different memory. Not and mine and not bad. Like I said, mine wasn't bad or whatever. It was just a lot of all the things that I tried to portray that I really remembered about my dad were uh were these life lesson moments, these stern life lesson moments. And I think in that moment I realized that when we were having that call with the minister that I had had a different childhood than my sisters, and I didn't even realize it. So,
To
um,
your point, like I remember growing up as a kid, my dad would play hockey or baseball with me. He'd be my coach. And then it's like I got older with the high school, college, like stuff. My sisters, my two younger sisters, only knew my dad as the spectator father. Whereas he wasn't out there. My mom became that person for them in terms of coach, playing with them physically on the field, coaching and stuff like that. And it was always I only knew my dad through coaching on the sidelines with me. It's same uniform, like whatever, coaching. And I never got to experiencing my dad watching my sisters play on the sideline with him. like it was like legendary, like the side comments, the cracking the jokes, the threatening the refs. It's stuff like that where it's like, but my sisters only got to experience my dad as the spectator, not like the.
Right.
So it's a kind of weird, like how growing up, the age gap, man, girl versus boy type situation where you almost wonder what the perception would be if they like the idea of describing your parents, each sibling, is such an interesting case study because you have those different experiences where my younger sister spent more time at home with probably me once my dad got hurt and retired early and all that stuff. So it's like it's just such a unique, crazy. And I remember the first time meeting your dad backstage, and I was just like super nervous, but like there's nothing he's gonna say to me that's gonna offend me. But like having you
Right.
talk about him, and all you guys talk about your parents and stuff, where the first time you meet somebody, you're like, oh god, like this, there's like an aura about him. There was like this kind of like this guy sees some shit, and he's gonna tell you if you're messing up, which I
Oh
admire
yeah.
because you can always look every time you hit like for people that know, when Shinedown has a hometown show, which for 4 members, there's like 12 cities in America. That's a hometown
Yep.
show.
Right.
And so there'd be 30 40 family members backstage. There's always that one family member, Brent's father, I can always look at and he could see a look on my face and he just nod to me and be like, you're gonna get through this, but I know why you're mad. But someone like your dad, when you look at him and he just look shake his head and just be like, all right, we gotta get out of here. It's time to go. Like we're
Oh, dude,
yeah.
he not impressed by anything, dude. Like not impressed. Uh, he would. My dad at a show, backstage at a show, was looking for two things. My dad was looking for catering and the exit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I remember the last show he ever got to see. He wasn't sick yet. Uh, last show he ever came to, uh, he was like, "I don't want to go out the mixing board. Just put a chair next to your wherever you're standing on stage. I just want a chair down there somewhere. That'll be fine." And dude, I remember like looking down there at him and just like, is he having a good time? I remember like does he want to be here? Like I don't know if he does or not. And that's the other thing too, man. It's like at some point I looked down there and he was gone. He was missing. Uh, my dad was very curt, but not in a mean way. Just very short. Everything
Yeah.
was he wanted things done the way he wanted them done, and that was it. And was didn't have a lot of words at all. Like it's interesting, man. Like I actually I had an interesting experience with my father where at some point when I was trying to come up in music, he had retired from some of the businesses he had started. He'd retired. He was done. And he was bored to death, man. He and I are very similar in that way where I have to be active. I can't be idle. I hate vacations. I can't stand them. I hate weekends because nothing can get done on the weekends. Like I want to be moving
Yeah.
and active. And he had retired and I was trimming houses. I was a carpenter. And I just remember, and he had built some furniture when I was a kid. So I knew he loved woodworking. And I was like, hey, why don't you come work with me, at the company? And for the next 20 years, he worked for that company. He worked for that company up until he had his first seizure and couldn't work anymore.
That's wild.
Uh, so he was 84 years old, still doing that. And every day, I mean, like up at 4:30,
Jeez.
in bed at 8, this kind of thing. But I had this 2-year overlap where he and I worked together just about every day. And we worked on the same job site every day. So we got to have lunch together and work together. And he and I had some, I mean, it's interesting that I don't remember a lot of our conversations we had at lunchtime or anything, but a couple of them stick out. And one of those was when he told me one day, he's like, "What are you doing in Charleston? Like, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, if you really want to do this music thing, you need to go somewhere else. You need." And at the time, Atlanta was hot. Like that's when Seven Dust and Stuck Mojo and Double Drive and a bunch of those
Double drive.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, Collective Soul, all this stuff was happening out of Atlanta. He's like, you know, because at the time it was like Nashville wasn't even a consideration because it was still super country. It was like either Los Angeles or Atlanta for whatever reason. That's where my brain went. And he's like, you need to move and you need to go do this thing or don't do it. And uh, even though I never did that, it was the first time my dad had shown some sort of interest in what I was doing, you know. Um, uh, I take that back. He always showed interest in what I was doing. It was the first time that I didn't think that I felt like he didn't think I was an idiot for wanting to do it. Because
Right.
it's the first time he pushed me to do something else. Like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
This isn't just a pipe dream. This isn't just something stupid. Like you're really spending your time doing this. I mean, I was touring every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then coming right in for work. Or some days if there was a show on a Wednesday night in North Carolina or in Florida, I would leave work at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever it was, drive to wherever we were playing, and then
Gosh.
drive right back on no sleep and go right back to work. And he was watching me do these things. So uh that was and I and then I remember another conversation. My dad thought he had figured it out, right? He goes, "Hey," and this is so my father, because my again, no artistic ability, no, you know, all business, right? All military, all business. He goes, "Hey, I figured it out." And I'm like, "What have you figured out?" And he said, "I figured out what you need to do for your career." I mean, he was very genuine about this. Like he had it figured out. And I was like, "Well, okay, what's that?" He goes, "You need to write a timeless song. Like, something timeless, like Desperado by the Eagles or White Christmas or something." And I'm like, do you think I'm not trying to do that?
Yeah.
I think he thought that I was just not making an effort to write a timeless, like that's just something you just go do. You just go write a timeless song
Yeah.
and and that's that. Uh it's just those little moments like that I remember of conversation with him. But uh for some reason, man, I really wish that I could go into some kind of regression and like try to remember some of and I don't know why I don't remember a lot of it, man. I don't know if I just glazed over it or if we didn't really talk that much. I don't remember if we talked very much or not. I mean, I know when I was a kid we didn't.
Do those
Um,
memories? I know we kind of talked about that, but like, it's actually one of the things I want to talk about this week. I've been trying to go back and remember like when my sisters and I were just all together this weekend, and we're just kind of like, "Hey, do you remember this or what happened here?" And then we're trying to piece together these ideas and these old stories when we are like kids, and we vaguely get it. But then my sister was like, "Do you think there's a part of your brain that actually has all this information, but we're just not able to physically harness the power or
mm.
the wherewithal to figure out how to use our own brain?" Because
Yeah,
where these once you do something, memories don't disappear, right?
I don't, well, I don't
It,
know. I don't know. I don't know if they disappear or not. Uh, I think you retain a a version that means something to you. So it's your experience is colored by who you are, and your memory is colored by who you are. It's why eyewitness testimony is so unreliable.
right.
You remember something as it was. In fact, it's interesting. This morning on my run, uh, it's funny you're talking about this because uh, I was on my run and I run down to the end of this dirt road. So there's coyotes and deer and turkeys
Stinks.
and snakes and bobcats and rabbits and squirrels and you name it, alligators, whatever. It's all down there. Uh, and I saw this animal jump and move through the brush, and I said, "Oh, there's a rabbit." But I thought it was a rabbit until it jumped up onto the side of a tree, and then it was a squirrel. I was like, "Oh, it's a squirrel." And that dawned on me in that moment. For some reason, I was thinking about this, that if I hadn't seen that animal jump up on the tree, I would have thought I'd seen a rabbit, when in reality I saw a squirrel. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I had that thought, but it plays into what we're talking about, right? That that, you know, I would have been sitting here right now thinking that I saw a rabbit instead of a squirrel. So our memories are sort of tinted uh, by who we are, by what our experience is, maybe by what our past experiences are, and what we think we're experiencing in the moment because of what we've experienced in the past. It to your point, my sisters and I have talked a lot recently in the past year. In fact, my dad passed away a year ago yesterday. It's interesting that we're talking about this.
Oh,
Yesterday was it's been a year since he passed away. Um, but my sisters and I have been talking an awful lot about just what you're talking about. Um, you know, are there things from my childhood I don't remember, I remember differently or whatever? And they'll bring things up like, don't you remember? I'll say something about, uh, well, I don't want to go into that, but let's just say I'll say, you know, I remember X, Y, and Z, and they'll go, no, 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 don't you remember,
yes. The
you know,
neighbor, the teacher did this.
don't you remember like us all playing
Yeah.
behind the couch and doing blah blah blah? And I'm like, well, now that you mention it, yeah, but I hadn't thought about that in forever, you know.
Yep.
And it's just it now is what I'm remembering when they say that the actual event, or am I placing myself in a place where I remember what the behind the couch looked like and I remember
Yeah.
playing back there, but I'm not remembering the actual event, right? You can sort of construct a memory too, I think.
But like, I've always
I
wondered, like when it comes to like Alzheimer's and dementia and other diseases where your memory and your brain goes, is it basically your body or brain, I guess, basically overflow with memories and whatever knowledge and every stuff you've accrued through your life that now it's just fritzing and spazzing out?
Well, it's an interesting mix of remembering and not remembering. I mean, my grandmother had dementia. My dad didn't have dementia, but he had, he had had some seizures. So there's some wiring that was not
Right.
right, and he was misremembering things or talking about things that happened years ago as if they happened yesterday and things like that. Um, One thing I've always found, well, how about this? Before I go there, um, uh, I'm writing something down because I realized I actually watched one of the last episodes of the podcast and realized that I'll start making a point and then sometimes I don't get back around to what that point was supposed to be and we go off on another tangent. So I've decided to write down when I start to make a point and I'm going to go off somewhere so I can get back around to where mean to get back around to so I don't sound like an imbecile. Um, I'm assuming this has been proven because I've read it several places. And if I think about it, if I try to recall things, it is like this, that when we are remembering something or when our brain takes stock of something going on, we see it in snapshots, not in motion. So, and I've read this in a few places that they've figured this out about the brain. So it's very difficult to imagine. You can, but it's very difficult to imagine something happening in motion. And if I start to really think about it, the way that I remember things, it is sort of in these pictures rather than in movement.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. Maybe our brain is recording snapshots and not recording uh uh motion and fluidity. It's almost like instead of getting 24 frames per second like you get on a film, you're getting 2 frames per second
Right.
or something that you
Yeah.
can. And then out of those 2 frames per second that as I'm watching you right now, maybe I'm getting 2 frames per second of your face. Uh, but then when I try to remember it, I'm only going to be able to access one or two of those frames that happen. And I've got to try to parse that into some sort of real memory. Um, that could be part of it. Another thing that is interesting about memory, and we're talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. Uh, so I read a book once called The Talent Code. And I forget the gentleman that wrote it. It's called The Talent Code. And he was looking for what makes great talent. Is it Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it uh
Danielle
is it
Coyle.
sorry?
Daniel Coyle.
Okay, Daniel Coyle. Uh so what makes all of the great women tennis players come from this one camp in this one tennis school in Russia? What makes most of the great baseball players come from the Dominican Republic? Why are most of the some of the greatest soccer players, soccer talent found in this one area in Brazil? Um, and so he went to study this thing and try to figure it out. And um, I won't go into too much detail, but one of the things he found out when it came to the scientific side of it and the brain side of talent is, and this is something that is, I believe it's fairly new being in the last 20 years, that they've discovered that the neural pathways in the brain, the things that can be attributed to muscle memory, not the kind of not memories of events and not memories of people, but muscle memory things that are repetitive, riding a bicycle, a baseball player throwing a baseball, a soccer player kicking a soccer ball, a musician playing an instrument, a dancer dancing. If you do these repetitive motions that you do over and over and over again, that get attributed to muscle memory, they found that those neural pathways for those actions that are repetitive and repeated again and again, brushing your teeth, walking,
Yeah.
these types of things,
Yeah.
get wrapped in this fibrous material called myelin, Mylin, I think, or Milyn, myelin. I don't remember exactly how it's spelled. And it's like a cast, and it wraps itself around those pathways for those repetitive motions. So you have a baseball pitcher, and he's pitching however many pitches a game. I don't know what's considered a lot, but just say
Yeah.
uh,
90 or so, 100.
yeah, 100 pitches or
Yeah.
90 pitches a game. And that's not, and then he's got practice and he's got how many years has he been doing that? His body knows how to make minute changes to throw a curveball or to throw a knuckleball or to throw a fastball that he can decide
Yeah.
in mid
Before,
windup, right?
yeah.
Because he's done these things so many times and his brain can access them like this. And it's muscle memory. It's over and over and over again. So this myelin is like a cast. It just wraps itself around these pathways and protects those pathways for those things. What I find interesting, knowing that, is someone with dementia, their photo memories, right? The memories of their family or their memories of where they are in their life or what the year is or where they are in their life, right? My grandmother would tell me that she was what I would go over to visit her and I would say, what have you done today? And she would say, "Oh, I was just taking care of the books for mom and dad's business." And well, she used to keep the books for her parents' business back in the day, but she was
Yeah.
95 years old at this point. So she hadn't done that since she was a little girl. But she was convinced that that's what she had been doing. And I would just go right along with it and ask her how the business was going. And, well, Daddy, he got back from the sawmill last night and one of the horses was this and that. And so she's living in, uh, in 1920, whatever, or, you know, 1918 or whatever that was for her. It wasn't that early, but it was something in the 20s for sure. Uh, and, but she could sit down at the piano and play every piano piece she'd ever known.
Wild.
And I think that's that myelin, right? That the muscle memory stuff. If she had been fit enough, she probably could have gotten on a bicycle and ridden it. Uh, there's a video I saw it on Instagram. It's out there somewhere of this woman with dementia in a home, and she was a very well-known ballerina. And they start playing the music that she used to dance. I think it was Swan Lake or something. And her hands come up and she just starts doing the motions. She knows the motions to this thing that she had done hundreds, maybe thousands of times. What was interesting is they placed a video of her when she was younger next to her now, where she was dancing next to her now in the chair, and the hand motions were exactly the same in those parts. Like she remembered every bit of it, and I'm sure if she was able to stand up, she could have done the whole thing.
Yeah.
that's myelin. That's that neural pathway for that thing that you did over and over and over again is is it's I mean, I
Hardwired
guess that
circuit. Yeah.
literally hardwired,
Yeah.
right? Um, and you find these things again. Tony Bennett recently
Oh,
had
that Lady
had
Gaga thing. Yeah.
died of dementia. He couldn't remember anything, but he could sing every lyric and every note of the songs he had sung thousands of times or hundreds of
Yeah.
times because he'd done it so much. Um, so I find it interesting that there are these two different sort of, I'm sure there's more than two, these two different sets of ways, two different types of memories. And you know, I you would think that having the love for your family or the love for your children or something like that being that strong would cause myelin to wrap around those neural pathways too, right? But maybe it doesn't. And I mean, again, like we say, you and I are imbeciles, right? What I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
what I'm
I wonder.
attributing to myelin might not be attributable to it, but I find it interesting that dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, seem to be able to snap out of their dementia and their stupor when it's something that they're familiar with that they've done again and
Physically.
again,
Yeah.
physically done, right? Um, their job or whatever, versus and it would be interesting to get someone maybe who was a carpenter, right? I'm talking about athletes and stuff, but what about someone who's a carpenter who maybe uh uh you know did
Cutting trim
the
work and all this intricate stuff.
yeah
Angles
made
and
the whole maybe someone who built roofs, right? And this guy had done a 1,001 hip roofs, and the math that you have to do for a hip roof is pretty it's more complicated than other types of roofs because of the the side rafters that go around. So a hip roof is, God, I see I'm on a tangent now. A hip roof is a roof where it's not just it's not just a triangle shaped roof that's flat on either end. It's got an angle on this end and then here.
yeah.
So it kind of like a Pizza Hut almost sort of looking
Yeah.
thing. Uh, and so the rafters on the side angles have to be a little bit longer and at a little bit different angle on those corners than the rafters that are running, you know, or the not the rafters, the trusses. Um, anyway, it would be interesting to take someone who had done 1,001 of those in their lives and see if they can remember how to use the framing square because they've done it so much. I would almost bet
Oh yeah,
that,
for sure.
that you could take them and go, hey, we're gonna build this roof right now. You all right? You having a stroke?
Yeah,
You
no, but I'm
good?
just like someone looks around
Oh,
really, oh yeah,
oh,
this is
I thought you were having. You're like, I was like,
yeah,
you all right?
yeah.
Um,
Spiders.
yeah, but I mean, but think about this too, though. Like, potentially, what kind of therapy could that be for someone with dementia to pull them into something that they know, right? And also not that they know, but that the person in the room knows that they know. So they're not living in la la land for that time period. They're actually, I wonder if they could do something, if they could if they could be if that would give them some sense of purpose. Not that they know the difference, I guess maybe purpose is the wrong word. They could be useful, right?
Productive in their
Productive, that's a better
maybe
word.
a productive way version of their happiness that they have left.
Mm. Yeah, so again, I don't know if any of this is possible. I don't know if any of this has been, I'm sure that someone is studying this stuff has thought
But
about this.
you look at a good carpenter that's hammered a nail 1 million, 2 million times,
Yep.
and he remembers that skill. But how often does that person say "I love you" to someone he loves, but actually loves, but doesn't say it? It's
Right.
like you talk about like this Mylon and stuff. Well, it's like we do a lot of our actions a lot of the times, but how often do we tell someone, "Man, I love you," because and then when you get older and stuff, you see these people. It's like obviously these people love you, like they've
Yeah.
always loved you, but they may not say it. But the physical act of doing what they do, it's such a weird. The brain is so fascinating.
Well, here's another thing too, man. I think that the worst thing you can do for someone who's older is, and we do it unintentionally to them. because we're caught up in, and I mean, I've been somewhat guilty of this as well. We're so caught up in our important lives, right? And I'm touring around the world and I'm making records and whatever, and uh, you know, maybe one of our loved ones needs a purpose, but we take their purpose away from them, you know, uh, or we take a purpose away from them and don't give them anything to put in its place. Uh, the rates of dementia, and again, I encourage everyone to look this up for themselves.
Yeah, we're just
Uh,
talking people.
yeah. But the rates of dementia for people who retire and just don't do anything after they retire is way higher than people who stay active and keep moving and keep using their brain or keep having a purpose. Um, the rates for dementia in people who are entrepreneurs and who run their own businesses and stuff are way lower than people who are, are working for the weekend and uh are looking toward retirement as fast as they can.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're working to live, or they're living
right,
to work. Yeah.
right, yeah. And so there's when I think that interesting, man, um my dad's brother, and by the way, this is not a slight at anybody in my family. It's just I found this interesting. So my dad he ended up with brain cancer. So um, he was glioblastoma is what he had, and but like I said, 84 years old, pounding nails every day, driving himself to work, working 40 hours a week, loved doing it. He talked about how tired he was and all this stuff, but that was just him being
Yeah.
him. He loved going and doing it. He loved hanging out with the guys on the job site, and um his brother, who's a year and a half older than he is, they both went through same thing. They both went to Severn Military Academy. They both went to Annapolis. My uncle ended up going into the Air Force and becoming a pilot. My dad went into the Navy.
Yep.
Um, and but they're very close in age and I wouldn't say similar in personalities. My uncle was very much a pilot and still is. He's still alive. He's very much a pilot. Very, uh, he's always the cool uncle, man. We always look forward to Uncle Stan coming to town because it was going to be fun, and he had that pilot's confidence. My dad was a bit more stoic, a good bit more stoic, but their physiology is very much the same. And my Uncle Stan, uh, retired at retirement age. I think he left the Air Force, and I think he worked for General Dynamic or something like that, and then retired early and played golf. Played a shit ton of golf. Love golf. Very good golfer too. But my dad just wanted to stay working. He never wanted to retire. That was kind of the difference in their personality. I think my dad needed the work. He needed a purpose. Uh, and at some point, my uncle's, you know, mental faculty started to slip a little bit. Maybe some dementia onset, that type of thing. Uh, and my dad didn't have that. And I wondered if this is just me speculating. I often wondered if that was because, my uncle he was enjoying a great life, but
Yeah.
he wasn't. Is he applying his intelligence to anything uh
Productive.
that's important to him versus where my dad is every day doing math, doing, you know, figuring things out.
Yep.
Um,
Problem solving.
and that was honestly was the most cruel thing about the glioblastoma was the fact that my dad physically was, I think that he had just had a physical pretty recently. The doctor said that he had, his body was in the shape of a 65-year-old. And, he was, he was very fit, very strong, mentally strong, everything, and then you get this cruel thing that happens in your brain and you lose the use of some parts of your body and stuff, man. It's just, it's you know, it's a shitty thing to watch. But uh, anyway, he never really had any dementia though. There was never any sort of mental deterioration until he had a seizure
Yep.
caused by the cancer. So, and even then, like there wasn't this heavy mental deterioration until he had maybe I guess his second major seizure was the one that happened close to the end. This was really the mental, where the mental stuff started to kind of go downhill a little bit. But it is, man. It the memory is, and here's the interesting thing, man. To be as unreliable as it is, meaning like I don't think it's admissible, right, in a court of law. Just eyewitness testimony. I mean, it's important, but it's not. It's admissible, but it's not. What do they say? There's something with it
They
where
can poke a lot of holes into it.
yeah, because people
It's
remember things so differently.
yeah, weather, time of day, location.
Yeah, color
Yeah.
color of someone's jacket or car or
Yes,
whatever. Dude, how about that? It happened to me recently where I was thinking about this.
that
There's a picture.
dress.
What's that?
Remember that dress meme? What color is the dress?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's just how people saw it. Like I was actually able at some point to see it both ways.
But imagine an eyewitness. If I walking down the street and I saw that, I'd be, oh, it's white and gold. You can't tell me
Right.
otherwise.
It was blue and black and white and
Right.
gold, right?
But
Those
two
were the
different
two
people could
options.
look at that as an eyewitness and be like, no, you're both wrong. Who's right?
Yeah. No, you're right. It's something objective became subjective in that moment. So our memories are subjective. It goes back to what I said. It's for lack of a better term, no pun intended, it's colored by your experience.
Right.
And recently I was there's a picture of us that the band's been using. And in my brain, again, this is weird that we're talking about this because I think about weird shit like this sometimes. In my brain, I remember the order. I was next to Brent down here on this end of the picture or something, and then when I saw the picture, I was in a totally different spot. I was like,
You're talking
I
about
remember.
the green, with the green like crystals coming out, like the triangles.
No, this is the picture we did in that sewage plant
Oh,
in the
okay.
UK. Uh,
Yeah.
literally, we were in a sewage plant in the UK. Shut down a retired sewage plant.
Oh, we're doing
Dead Don't Die video.
Dead Don't Die. Yeah.
That's where that video was done in a sewage plant.
Yep.
And it was 2 degrees.
We were eating
All day.
French fries by like a heater, like warming up
Yeah.
McDonald's French fries
Yeah.
by a heater.
I mean, it was cold in there. Like we could see our breath the whole day inside. But anyway, that picture, one of the pictures we took up there that we've been using quite a bit. I have the get off my lawn face. I don't know. Maybe that's my face all the time. But I just remembered that picture differently. And then I saw it and I was like, wait, I thought I was, there you go. You know,
Yeah.
And by the way, I would have bet money on it. I would have bet money that, you know,
You're the
that I was
Jiffy.
right.
Yeah, you're the Jiffy in Shinedown.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Back to Mandela effect that we were talking about a few weeks ago. You know, maybe the Mandela effect is just bad memory. I mean, that's all it is, you know. And again, just like my sister saying, don't you remember being behind the couch? And all it takes is one or two people to go, hey, don't you remember Jiffy? I mean, I remember Jiffy, don't you? And it's like, oh yeah, I remember Jiffy, you know. So maybe that's all the Mandela effect is. I totally remember Jiffy, but I probably am like super wrong about it. So it's just interesting that all of who we are is memories. Like, I mean, our entire identity is where we've come from. And if as a child, if we had lived a different life, we'd have a different identity. Yet all of those things that make us ourselves are completely unreliable.
Well, you look at the news, they say one thing happened, and then for the longest time, I think more people are waking up now to like, hey, question everything. But you just take their word for it. It's like, oh, I heard on the news.
Yeah.
I heard my friend was talking about it. I trust my friend, so that news is correct. Where now,
that's why I'm so careful with this stuff to be like, don't
right.
You know, we're just talking because I could, you know, the source of a lot of my information could be wrong. You know,
probably is.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's or just again, like some of the things like I've found myself even on this podcast trying to remember, and I'm like, well, don't, you know, I think it was this and this and this and this. And I'm trying to access these things that are way back in my brain somewhere that I know I've heard before and trying to remember what the details are and how virtually impossible that is. And so hypothetically, let's just say that I saw some event happen um, years ago, and now there's a murder investigation, and I have to try to remember those
Oh,
events, right? Am I going to be able to accurately access that stuff? Um, I don't. I probably a little
what?
bit, but not enough to
Yeah,
be reliable.
one of our followers watched I think 2 episodes ago. They wrote into one of our Instagram boxes, whatever. It was basically say, "Hey, what are your guys' thoughts on deja vu?" It kind of went along with like more of the mind stuff, brain stuff we've been talking about, but it brings like the fact that with in terms of memories, I know you've brought up the Matrix a bunch in these episodes, but the in the Matrix when you see the black cat again, the guy goes, "Oh," Neo goes, "Oh, deja vu." And it's like so when you have deja vu, is it a memory or a something you've already
That
experienced, or is it a trigger? Like deja vu for me is the craziest concept. I can't even wrap my head around it.
I think about that occasionally. I don't dwell on it, but a couple of the thoughts that I've had that I like to think about is I go back to that thing about I think at some point we talked about this about how uh uh in I don't know if it's string theory or quantum theory or what it is. But that time isn't maybe it has nothing to do with either one of those things, but that some people have put forth that time isn't linear. Time doesn't take place in a line.
Yeah,
Time takes place all at once. So this chair that I'm sitting in yesterday didn't have anybody occupying it, right? This space. I don't even think I came in the studio yesterday. But that yesterday is taking place right now at the same time this is taking place. So sometimes I think that deja vu could be, if that's the case, the fact that there are these layers to, to time, but it's all stacked in the room at one time. It's all stacked in the space at one time. Um, that perhaps when we experience deja vu, it is that we've passed through a place that we've either been in before or will be in again, maybe.
yeah,
Um, and or maybe we occupy the same space as someone else in that space at that time and it lines up just perfectly and we're getting their sense of the space that they
yeah.
had at one point. And I know that sounds super woo woo, but if you get into interdimensional stuff or like I said nonlinear time, that stuff's plausible, right?
Now, do you when you
uh,
mentioned, I think your grandmother about like the memories, like oh the sawmill and all this stuff,
mhm.
could you look at that as the same type of linear type of time? Like, what if that version of her is?
What if she's literally seeing it,
That's what I'm saying.
you
What if
know?
she's living it right now and it's like this version of her? Like when death happens for an individual, like how the linear time of that stops that person's death, correct? Or is this another version of their life that's actively still kind of existing on that same type of timeline?
Well, are you saying like metaphysically
Yeah,
does
yeah, like
like so people say this has been disproven. I'm not so sure that I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. What because I think again, I think everything's colored by what someone wants to be true. At one point, an experiment was done about the weight of a soul, right? How much does a soul weigh? And this guy would weigh people before and after they passed away, and he said that 21 grams, I think was what he said, that people would lighten by 21 grams when they passed away.
so his
And then
name
some,
was Dr. McDougall, and one of the 6 subjects lost 3/4 of an ounce, 21.3 grams.
yeah. But there were some other tests done where that happened. It was repeatable to some extent, but then other people say that it's been completely debunked and disproven. But again, I know we've talked about NDEs on here, near death experiences, and these people talk about how when they passed away, they became infinite and they occupied all points of the universe somehow.
Right.
And they were infinite. And then when they came back to life, they got squeezed into this uncomfortable body, this meat suit, right? And they just that feeling of being squeezed back into this thing that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I super identify with that, right? Like that feels like, yeah, that's how I feel. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm supposed to be somewhere else. Uh, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just how I mean, like,
Yeah. No,
have we touched on that stuff at all? I guess we have. I don't
no, we
remember what we've
haven't.
talked about,
You
what
and
we
I have
haven't.
talked off the record a lot about it.
Yeah. And we can talk about that maybe some other time. But
Yeah.
to your point, like, I feel like if that is the case, that yeah, the timeline. Again, if we're not thinking about timelines, but I guess that's kind of the only way we can wrap our heads around it. And because it's hard for me to wrap my head around everything happening in everything all at once in one spot. You know, wherever you are, 1,000 from years from now is happening. 1,000 years ago is happening. A
Yeah.
million years ago and a million years in the future is happening. And I think when we talked before, it kind of played into that random number generator with 9/11, and we were talking about that, how like these we can feel those other things, perhaps, right?
Yep.
And so my grandmother passing away, her life ended, her physical life ended, but you know, that spirit that left her body, that 21 grams, if you will, maybe some of that's left over. Maybe that's some of that's left over with all of us in these spaces. And uh maybe every moment that passes by, we're leaving a little bit of something behind. We're leaving a little bit of ourselves in the ether. And maybe that's what deja vu is. Maybe it's, I feel like I've been here before. Well, maybe you haven't been there yet. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe you're feeling something that, that you haven't been there before. You still have yet to be there, or you're experiencing some of you that's in the room that you didn't, that you're leaving in the future. It's still there. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know what it is,
That
man.
idea of like, I think the phrase was, "Are you worth your weight in gold?" Like, what if the gold is actually like your soul, like the value? Like, that's why it's like, again, not to go off some deep, like crazy good versus evil, like spiritual type thing. But if there is a weight to a soul, and this study was done in early 1900s, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, if there's a battle for your soul, even today, people talk about symbolism and all this stuff. Maybe they're onto something where it's like if you collect enough souls, whether what side of the spectrum you're on, there's power and value to that. And it seems like there's always
Yeah.
that battle of good versus evil.
I, I, I'm sure if people can find this meme, and I'm going to paraphrase it, it's probably badly, but what is, to your point, it sticks out in my mind pretty vividly, and it says, if your soul isn't worth anything, then why are good and evil constantly fighting for it?
Yeah.
You know, uh, I mean, man, I believe in that stuff. I believe that there is, if you're going to believe in absolute good, then you have to believe in absolute evil. And I was watching a video this morning with a gentleman named John Lennox. He's a mathematician at uh, Oxford, I believe. But he kind of finds himself in an interesting place because he is a Christian college professor in the sciences, right? He's a mathematician.
Oh yeah.
And his colleagues, he gets into some wild conversations with them. They kind of, I don't know if they drag him or not, but they, they're constantly asking, how can you believe this
Yeah.
gibberish and all this stuff? And uh, he made a really good point so he has there's a very famous, I don't know if it's famous, a very good debate between he and Richard Dawkins. And Richard Dawkins, for the people who don't know, is a highly intellectual individual, very smart atheist, and he is just always banging the drum for there is nothing else other than just whatever is, and that there's no purpose behind anything. And Richard Dawkins will say there's no good and evil. There's no good and evil. It's just whatever the DNA, whatever's in your DNA is what you do. And whatever happens, happens. And there's no reason for it. And again, he always says there's no good and evil. And John Lennox says at the same time that he'll say that, he'll one of Dawkins' arguments is, how does God let all this evil happen in the world? When Dawkins is like, well, you just, or Lennox says, you just said there's no evil. There is no good and evil. So why are you accusing God of being evil? Uh,
Yeah.
there has to be, man. There has to be these forces, right? whether you're atheist or not, uh, we have the ability to decipher what's right and wrong. Now, sometimes what we think is right and wrong, it differs for people. Um, I do think that there is a, I'm gonna think about this as I'm saying it, but there's a general agreed upon sense of right and wrong in the world, good and evil. Even if those lines get blurred, because sometimes I feel like, look, people who jihadists, right? They have a different sense of right and wrong. They think that what they're doing is right or righteous. I don't know if they think what they're doing is good, but they think it's righteous. Maybe I'm conflating righteousness and good with that. But um, I just think that we inherently know as human beings the difference between right and wrong, or something that is right and good and wrong and unjust. Um, and I just, I think that those things are that if you believe that there is good in the world, then you have to believe there's evil trying to undo that. And I've been thinking an awful lot about spirituality, man, an awful lot about you know what is the spirit realm, or what is heaven, um what is hell. And uh I don't have any answers, but I've been thinking an awful lot about it. We're listening to those I listened to those podcasts with the Bledsoe
Yeah.
family. And maybe we can get into that at some point. Maybe we should do an episode on the Bledsoe family.
Yes.
Maybe we can get Ryan Bledsoe on. That would be fun.
Yeah.
His son, Chris Bledsoe's son. The Bledsoe family, just real quickly, is Chris Bledsoe had an experience with orbs and what some people might say are extraterrestrial entities or something,
Yeah.
but he doesn't think they're extraterrestrial. He thinks they're spiritual in nature. And these orbs that appeared and these beings, and they have the Trinity. They have a triangle on their chest. It's interesting, man. It sounds like, we're so programmed to think about things like that as not possible in science fiction, but when you hear him talk about it, he's like, he's taken people out and shown these orbs, right? Uh, but he and his family, and even NASA, even the people from NASA that came into their lives to study what was going on. I mean, that's how it's documented. I mean, this really took place. Like our government, CIA, FBI, NASA, NSA, they all showed up at this guy's place, and he welcomed them in, and they lived at his house. They were experiencing these things as well. He said that even NASA believes that it's spiritual. That's not the reason why I've been on this hunt, but it's just or thinking so much about spirituality and good and evil. But that thought that thought that that maybe there is something else beyond, and these beings know. And again, I don't think they're beings. Like, I don't think, say beings, people think Close Encounters. It's not. I don't
Yeah.
think it. I don't
Gray
maybe
man.
think it's like.
Yeah.
Well, but again, I go back to listening to people recounting near death experiences, and every I would say I say every single one. A large majority of people who I've listened to, and I've probably listened to hundreds of them at this point, or read about hundreds of them at this point as well, talk about just infinite spirits and infinite personalities and people, for lack of a better term, like around them. Yeah, that the Earth is such a small microcosm of what's there, and uh, I don't know. How did I get off on this? I said I was going to write stuff down so I wouldn't forget it, but I
Yeah.
just left Earth for a second. You were talking about good and evil, I guess, and
Yeah.
that's how we got
Well,
there.
we were talking about the weight of the human soul.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait,
What's your
yeah.
soul? How valuable is your soul?
Right. And
Well,
why are people?
evidently it's pretty valuable, because there are two forces that are vying for it.
Yeah.
There's one, and the interesting thing, man, is that the evil force, the darkness, is always easier than the good force. The things that are good and righteous and the light, for lack of a better term, or godly, or positively spiritual or whatever are always going to be more difficult. They're going to require more of you to bring about
Accountability and everything. Yeah.
discipline, accountability,
Yeah.
structure, study, whatever it is. Evil is easy. Evil is you know, it's how long does it take to make something beautiful, and how quickly can it just be torn down?
Yeah.
So evil is easy. Evil is everywhere. Like I see it. The older I get, I know I'm being an old man here, but the older I get, the more obvious it is to me. The more it's just right in my face and apparent. Um, and here's the thing, man. It still calls to me too. It's still trying to get me to do things I shouldn't do every day. Uh, and it's just the decisions you make. And the more difficult decision is always probably going to be the right one. It's going to be the
Yeah.
good decision. But I don't know. I kind of wish I knew, but
Well,
that's not part of the journey, because uh, if you know already, then you don't have any faith, right? And faith is super important to growth. And you can't have faith if it's you you know you have to have you can only have faith in things you can't see. You can't have faith in things you've seen or know.
right.
uh so that's important for sure. And you can't have hope if you've seen something either. So if you've if the only way to be hopeful, you have to be hopeful in things that you want to happen, or that you wish would happen, or that you are working to make happen. It's the only way you can be hopeful. You can't be hopeful if you know about it. If you know it's going to happen, then there's no hope. There's no reason to
Yeah.
have hope, because it's a foregone conclusion at that point. So the fact that even in the darkest times we still have hope, we have that hope because as Jim Carrey said, you're telling me there's a chance.
Still a chance.
Still a chance. So, and I love those things. Those things are beautiful. I think those things are of God, right? They're whatever your religion is,
Yeah.
those things are faith and hope, and those things, faith, hope, and love, right? The three most important. What do I say? Faith, hope, and love, and the most important is love, right? Um, and you can't see any of those things. You can experience them, but you can't see them. Um, anyway, woo woo Eric is done.
Yeah. That was impressive. The
Was it?
I before we wrap this up, a question I had for you. Um, I think I was trying someone else in another band, and they came up where it's like so I don't want the person's going to launch. They got their own little podcasting coming and like this cool thing they're doing, and they were like, they asked me, they're like, I find it difficult, and this is them saying to me, to be this version of myself while I'm also represented in a band, in a business. He goes, so basically my question for you is it tough to be Eric Bass, the version that you're most happy under the banner of the Shinedown record label, as a horse owner, as all these different titles you have? Is it tough to be a version of you, or is it like, can you, we'll use Shinedown for example, because like everyone obviously knows Shinedown and you, but could you talk about what the version of like your happiness, like the best version of you, whether it's outside of Shinedown, inside of Shinedown, is there a weight that comes from being in Shinedown that kind of stifles a version of you that could be happier, or a version of you that might be different than what people perceive you as in Shinedown?
Yeah, I'm a student of that, and I'm constantly learning how to try to be myself, but also it's an interesting place to be, because I am learning how to be myself. In the past couple of years, I've really started to figure out uh, that I'm dishonoring. I feel like I'm dishonoring the band and I'm dishonoring the fans and the people that love what we do if I don't show them who I really am, for better or worse. Because me it's an interesting line between that and trying to be larger than life when you need to be.
Correct.
Because uh, I've said this a bunch to people privately, and I've said it in public as well. Is I get paid to be a rock star for 2 hours every night, and then I get to be myself again. And so when I step on stage, there is a switch that goes off. I'm still myself. That's still part of me. What's interesting is the nights when I don't feel like that guy at all. Like I have a lot of anxiety on stage some nights
Yeah.
and a lot of bad voices in my head telling me that I'm fat or I'm ugly or
Yeah.
my maybe my voice is ragged out and thrashed and I still have to sing, so I'm not going to sound as good as I normally do. And uh, you know, to quote Mel Brooks, everyone's going to find out I'm a fraud. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, but it's interesting being that guy and wanting to be dynamic and give people a show and be myself. Um, the unfortunately for me, the real me is pretty boring. I'm not super exciting. I wish I were. I think we talked about this on another podcast. I wish I
Yep.
was the person that lit up a room and had that X factor personality that people were drawn to. I'm never going to be that. That's something I've had to come to terms with. Um, now
But you're
I
that
can.
person for other people, though.
I don't know. I don't know if I am or not. I look at myself. I watched 2 episodes ago. I think I watched the podcast the first time I've watched it. Well, I did do the first one. I was in the chat for a minute when we did the first one.
Yep.
Um, but I kind of look at myself and I'm like, man, you're kind of boring, dude. But it's just who I am. I can't be anybody other than this. And if people like listening to this, then I appreciate that very much because you're listening to the authentic me and you're getting the authentic me with Shinedown. But there's a lot of stuff that I have to do with Shinedown that I just because of my personality, I wish I didn't have to do. We have a photo shoot coming up this week, and it's just not me, right? It's not that I'm ashamed of it or anything. Uh, it's just it's why I hate videos and photo shoots. I can't stand video shoots. I can't stand photo shoots
Yeah.
because they feel inauthentic to me. But that's
Forced.
something that
Very forced.
yeah, but that's something that I have to do. You can't be in a band and not have video content or or photographs. People are always trying to get me to do TikTok stuff or
Dude, that video
Instagram
was
posts.
awesome. Were you doing the twerk? Damn, you move so
I
well.
Dino hit me up this morning. It said something about that, and I just said, man, I did my best to shake this narrow ass because my God,
Put you on an assault bike.
he will. Uh, but I don't mind doing those things if it's authentic. And I'm not going to say that what that TikTok I made was 100% authentic. It was a trend, right? I'm being asked like, and I know what the trend is. I'm, you know, I'm a musician. Of course, I'm going to do this. I'm a
Yeah.
musician. Of course, I've seen the trend, right? I don't dig trends. I don't like trends. I never have. But I said I would do this and I did it. So the most authentic thing in there is me doing that dance because it was like, I'm running out of things to say. We're off tour. Of course, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to do this. That's the problem. I'm a
Yeah.
grumpy old man. That's my personality, right? So, uh, no one wants to see a grumpy old man in a band. So, yes, I have to modify myself sometimes to be
Yeah.
not grumpy old man. Um, I'm not old, older, grumpy older man. Uh, but we talk about the weight, though. I wrote that down. The weight uh comes from trying to keep up appearances. And as long as you're not trying to keep up appearances, if you're not lying about anything or you're not trying to keep up appearances, then there's no weight. there's no weight associated with it. I went through a long period of drinking heavily uh, to be able to be somebody else. I'm a lot more fun. I'm really fun when I'm drunk, man. Like super fun. I'm not boring, grumpy old man. I'm the opposite. But that's an avatar. It's
Yeah.
not real, and I wake up the next morning and I'm sad because I'm still
Ugh.
me. I'm
Yeah.
sad because I'm still me. And that's a terrible way to be. Um, so the weight comes with that stuff. The weight comes with lying about things to make yourself sound better than you are or appear better than you are. Um, the that weight gets lifted with authenticity and with just accepting who you are and accepting how you are. I mean, look, I struggle an awful lot, man. I still do. I've had people online laugh at me about it when I've posted things, which sucks, but it's just the nature of people being
Yeah.
assholes, I guess. But uh I struggle with my physical appearance, like big time. Like, I don't I have a you know, sort of a mug face and I think my legs look weird. I hate my legs. And people laugh about that shit, but it's just true. I'd rather just say it and get it out there. Again, that lifts the weight when I can say those things.
Yeah.
But but I but feeling that way doesn't ever get fun, Like I wish that again, I wish I were more attractive. I wish that I had a great personality but hey man, that just comes with it. It's just part of it and it's part of this package that I've got. And so I've again, the weight, like right now, there's no weight at all. Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
I'll feel a bit of a weight when we do that photo shoot because uh it's smile, look at the camera, you know, act this way and act that way and you
I love the
know
version of you where we're doing like those photo shoots for videos, and
and
like
I've got and I've
the
got one.
wardrobe people come in
Oh dude, I can't
like the
stand
day
it.
before, and then it's like everyone like the few other band guys, and me and Sanjay just sitting there licking our lips, going, "I can't wait for Eric to come in here." And the last time was actually you were done before everyone else. Like that,
Yeah, I had
but
to apologize to those people though, man. I acted out a little bit with that. I wasn't acting out, but so we were doing it was the
Dead Don't Die
war
and Daylight.
uh Dead Don't Die and Symptom of Being Human
Yes,
wardrobe
yeah,
stuff. And these two lovely individuals, man, lovely
awesome.
people, really, really great. Uh no, it wasn't that. It was something else. It wasn't that. It was the Ryan and Kelly thing. That's what it was. Or
Yes,
not
they
not Ryan and Kelly. What's it? Mark and Kelly
Mark and
show.
Kelly. Yeah, New York City.
And
Yeah.
that's what it was. Because I think I did okay at the video shoot stuff, but I'm comfortable. Most of the time I wear white t-shirt, black pants, Vans. That's what I roll in. And uh something interesting happens when you're in a rock band when you get stylist is uh they automatically have this idea of what a rock band is and what we want to wear. And it's always some kind of button-up shirt, vest thing. And it's like it pisses me off, man. It makes me feel it's weird. It's like can we not do this? And then the thing about the Mark and Kelly show is, oh, you're going on daytime television. So we have to make you harmless looking,
Yeah.
right?
Take the
We
edges
can't,
off.
yeah, we can't have you be edgy at all. And this is coming from the top down, right? Uh,
Which I
and so,
get.
and so, yeah, sure, you're trying to, what did I say? I've said this before on this show as well, is as soon as you hit send on that email with your music, it becomes a product and you're a product. I'm a product. It's on some level, right? Um, So I don't not understand it. It's just I want to be authentic. And so when I walk into one of these things and they hand me a pair of slacks and a black button up and I'm just like, this is fucking it. Like, and guess what? I wore the slacks and the black button up and I played the fucking song and I was done. I did the thing. Uh, and by the way, that's not a slight at dude. That Mark and Kelly show have been awesome to us over the years. Like they're great people. It's
Oh,
not
they're great.
them.
They're
It's
great.
not
Yeah.
them. They made no requests whatsoever. They just want us on their show. This is like more internal stuff. Um, but I'd rather just can't we just wear what we wear and just be us? Like, can't I just wear this white t-shirt, black pants, and Brent wear whatever he wears on a day? If this is what we're doing for this thing is just being ourselves. Can't we just be ourselves? Do we have to do I have to put on something that I would never wear ever in a billion fucking years? But that's what I did. I had to do it. And interesting enough, man, it was like the final tweak for my brain was I put the outfit on and I cuffed my pants up a little bit, not tight rolled, but just cuffed them up a little bit, made them a little shorter because that felt like I felt like when I looked at myself, it's like it made it like a little more something. And we're getting ready to get on the elevator to go down to the show, and the guy who's one of the stylists goes, "Hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on," and he uncuffs my pants for me. Okay, you look great. I'm like, I'm gonna stab somebody right now. And the thing is I went up there like when those two poor individuals though, I walked in there with a bad attitude, which I shouldn't have done. And I apologized to them later and I thanked them for their time and
Yeah.
apologized for the way I acted, man. But like I just walked in there like, I don't fucking care. Do you like it? Do you like the way this looks? Is this doing it for you? Great. I'm fine with it. I was literally in and out because I just didn't
Yeah.
like what's the point in me going through and finding things I like? Because every time I find something I like, they go, no, 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 not so much that. And it's like,
Yeah.
never mind.
Then why is the option there to begin with?
Right. Don't give me any options. Just,
Right.
just hand me the busboy outfit and send me down to the fucking show.
Right.
You know, it's like the only thing I was missing was a fucking napkin. I could have bust tables and all night long in that outfit. So, I mean, that's just what it is. Go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a busboy outfit.
Yeah.
The slacks. I've still got the stuff in my closet. I've still got it, and I'm like, I mean, I thought about it. Here's the thing. Interestingly enough, I put the pants on the other day because Kelly and I were going out to dinner at this nicer restaurant, and I was like, nope. I wouldn't even wear them to dinner. But I tried them on just to see if they worked, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Uh,
So yeah, man, it's I think it's why I don't get asked to do Shinedown interviews that much. Like I don't get asked to do, even though I make the records and spend a lot of time with them and write the records and I know more about our records than any other human being
yeah.
because I make I assemble them, I put them together, I know what making them tick and work and move.
Now, do you think
And
is that on you now? Say for the next album to be like whoever does the PR, hey, if producer stuff and engineering and all this intricate crazy shit offshores come in, let me be your guy.
well, no, I can absolutely when that stuff comes in, but I'm just talking in general. Like, uh, uh, I spoke with Brent about this recently. It was like, dude, like I make this stuff too. Like
Oh
I
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
I mean, for the majority of Planet Zero, it was just he and I in a room at the same time, bringing these things into being, and I never get to talk about them. And so I never get asked to talk about them. I never get given the interviews. And by the way, I realize it's because I'm probably pretty fucking boring. I talk like this, and no one's interested in the stuff I'm interested in. I'm interested in the more the woo woo aspect of songwriting and
yeah,
how things come into being and what the song really means and and then also how it was made. Like I find that stuff interesting. The things that interested me in interviews with bands that I loved growing up was, you know, oh, we used this guitar on this song because it did this, and then this element we used this piano or we used a string section and this synthesizer and so people get bored with that stuff, man. They want to see they want to hear from the front man with the personality and so that's why I don't get a lot of those interviews. And I know that's why, even though no one will say it. 1,000% why. Uh, and so I've just had to be okay with that. I've had to get okay with not being able to talk about these things that I make. And maybe that's for the best. I might ruin it for people. I don't know. But I might tell them things they don't want to know. Who knows?
yeah.
But
They're like,
but at the end of the day, but again, and I said I talked to Brent about it recently. Like that's on me. That's not on him or anything. It's just it's not we're not arguing about it or anything. We quite the opposite. We
I mean, it's
we
a
have
world class problem. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
in terms of everything else that could go wrong in this industry for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a mouthpiece, man, and just like you know, guys in Foo Fighters don't really do interviews. Dave Grohl does. It's like
Corey
it's
Taylor does all the interviews.
Corey Taylor does all the interviews
Yes.
for yeah, and so you know that has good and bad things that go with it, man. I mean, you have again, you're getting to see the dynamic personality and talk to the person who knows how to sell the donuts. I'm not saying I don't really know how to sell the donuts. I can make the donuts, but
You
not
can
sell the
definitely eat the
donuts.
donuts.
I can eat the
We
donuts.
can
If you
eat the
see,
donuts for sure.
dude, I've got about 20 pounds of donuts I got to get rid of. But the downside is you don't get to hear from anyone else or what their opinions on because they're back. We bring it full circle back to memory. Their memories of making it are different, and their experiences are different, and maybe they can bring some bring to light some things that the other
Like I
person doesn't
liked
remember.
when I think it was Plan Zero. That was during the pandemic, right? Like these last 3 years are just
Sure,
a
man.
blur. But I know what song it was, but you guys brought Barry's drum set out in front of your house or studio. And you like the
Yeah, we
rugs down the driveway, like stuff like that interests me more than, oh yeah, this is the song. Like I like that type of stuff.
Yeah, so we recorded two parts of two songs with a drum kit in my driveway outside. And the reason for that is because if you want what we call a dry drum sound, which means there's no reverb, there's no echo, it just sounds like you hit the drum and it's just dead.
Yeah,
Uh Tonally it's good, but vibe wise, there's no reverb. You can do that in a small room like this, but the problem with that is you get slapped back off of the walls, or the microphones have a tendency if they can't handle the volume of being in that room, small of space, they'll distort and overload. So if you go outside and do it, if you can, if you had the place to do that, uh, you still won't get any reverberation because it's going away, but it doesn't overload the microphones. It's more of an open sound without being echoey. Uh, uh, an example would be Stone Temple Pilots record called Tiny Music from the Vatican Gift Shop, I think is the name of it. It had like Holes in a Paper Heart and uh,
yeah,
uh, uh, Lady Picture Show and uh, some of those songs. All those drums were done outside, so they're dry. So we did that on a couple of songs. The only thing that made it onto the record was the verses in uh, Sure Is Fun. The drums in the verses are done outside. And then on the chorus, we brought the drums inside into the big echoey room for that. And then there's one other song that we did that I don't know if we'll ever release it or not, but the whole song is the drums outside.
nice.
So, uh, but yeah, I mean, just I always enjoyed stuff like that, like the technical things about records, and that's why I like making records.
Yeah,
But uh, yeah, so it's an interesting dance between being enough of yourself to be authentic, but trying in those moments where you need to be dynamic, like in a meet and greet or something. I'm going to be more outgoing and more talkative than I would normally be, just because it's not about me in that moment. It's about the fans, right? And on stage, yes, I mean, me moving around and jumping around is absolutely 1000% part of my DNA. I don't know how to perform otherwise. But there are nights when I don't have it. When I go out there, I don't feel like that guy, but I better act like that guy. So it's a give and take for sure. But I am happy that I've become more comfortable with myself and who I am, and just coming to terms with who I am, for good, for better or worse, or for interesting or boring or whatever,
right.
and just being all right with that. It is a lot less weighty, to use that word again, to walk around as yourself, not try to walk around as some avatar that you're not.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good week. Good episode.
Good job, John. You
Good.
listen to me ramble for 2 hours again.
I'm still
I swear. I think we need to rotate back and forth where I ask you stuff because I feel like all I do is run my mouth.
I'm still trying to figure
And
out what you're talking about the roofing for a little bit.
oh, the hip roof.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
Here, I'll draw it. I'll draw a hip roof. Here we go. So last thing I'm gonna do for today
I think
on the
it kind of
show.
reminds me of my old Playmobil barn I used to have. I think that's the shape you're describing.
Yeah, so a hip roof. This is a terrible drawing. Oh, that's really bad. Hang on.
We got to see that picture for sure. That's gonna be a post.
So a hip roof is here. I'll just it just looks like this. A hip roof looks like that.
Ah, yeah,
So
like a
so it comes down this way too.
like a
You know,
trapezoid almost.
yeah. And so when you get to the corners of a hip roof, is this what that's what I was talking about earlier. I'm really going to bore people now. This is great. Everyone's going to turn this off right now. So when you get to the corner of a hip roof, like here,
See this? Yep.
you have the rafters running this way, right? You have the
Yep.
rafters that are running down this way, and then you have rafters. So these rafters or these trusses running this way, and then you have these trusses running this way. But the one in the corner right here, this one,
Yep.
has to be to turn that corner has to be a bit longer than these and at a flatter angle. So you have to know that math
Ah, yeah.
to turn that corner. There you go. That's what I was talking about. I all the roof on my studio is a hip roof. The roof on my house is a hip roof. And so I built a woodshed recently and I wanted it to match. So I hadn't done a hip roof in a long time and I had to remember that. I had to look it back up and remember that math and it's not easy. But again, I wonder if someone who has dementia who built hip roofs a bunch in their lives would still have that ability and that knowledge. I have a feeling they would.
Yes. I wonder if I'd be pissed if you're like, if all the stuff you've lived your life, you're getting like you're 97, you're getting close to the seeing the light, and you want some other memory, and all you can get in your head is just how to build a roof. You're just like pissed. Like, stop it.
Yeah. Uh I don't know, man. Who knows? I that's another interesting topic for another time is like what, you know, maybe what's going through your mind or through somebody's mind when they're passing away. I wonder what that's like. Because I've experienced a couple of different things with different family members and it's wildly different with each one of them. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. So
I don't know.
we can definitely do that because like even my dad, he was in a coma for a little over a month, and like some of his vivid memories of what he assumed we were doing because he could hear us the whole time. And that's
Hmm.
a whole other wild concept.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine hearing something and not even being able to remotely? Like, it's just, yeah. I just
Yeah.
love talking about the brain. It's super fascinating to me.
Yeah, man. It's you know, yeah, that coma thing scares me, man, because you have not to take us down a whole other rabbit hole right here at the end. I thought we were ending and now we're not. But
Yeah, we could just tease them.
the hubris sometimes that comes with the medical community. Like we know what's going on and
Yeah,
you don't and
this
don't
is
worry
what's going to
about it.
happen.
Right. We know what's really going on. And yet how many times have people been said that oh, this person's brain dead
Miracles.
and we're going to pull the plug because they're brain dead. I have no brain activity whatsoever. And this speaks to maybe to a possibility of a soul, right? That those people that are brain dead, that that we're going to get the plug pulled because the doctors say they're a vegetable and it's finished, somehow come out of it and remember all of the conversations, including the conversation about pulling the plug.
Yeah,
And this hubris of the medical community, not everyone in the medical community, not painting a broad stroke, just there are doctors who maybe they hate their job, maybe they're unhappy or something, but they've got in their head that they know everything and no one else knows anything and there's nothing left to learn. They know it all. And those are the people that scare me, man. I had a doctor, had some surgery done last year, and doctor's a super nice guy. Uh well, I had kidney stone surgery, right? I had to have that kidney stone that was blocking my what is it? Not the urethra. What is it? The it's called the ureter or something. It's something up high. I forget what the name of it is. But anyway, the tube coming out of the kidney to the, anyway, it was just super painful. Um, but I was trying to go in with him into like, well, how did I get these kidneys? Like, where's, because that was like the fourth kidney stone I'd had in a year
Right.
at that point, uh, or pretty close to it. And I was just asking him, I'm like, why is this happening? Like I'm trying to figure out why I'm getting these kidney stones because I want to stop it. I don't want it to happen again. And I did a bunch of research and found out that excessive amounts of vitamin D can cause kidney stones. Well, I had been taking a COVID protocol that included a lot of vitamin D at some point. So maybe that was it. I've been drinking Topo Chicos and
Calcium
Perrier's
water. Yeah.
that have a ton of calcium in them, like 70 milligrams per bottle. And maybe it was that. And then I said, I've been under a lot of stress making the record and everything. And I've heard that stress can cause that. And I'm going over this stuff with him. He's like, yeah, I don't know. He just wasn't interested at all in what was causing it. Right. He's like, I can do the surgery, but I'm not really interested in going through this with you and figuring out why it's happening. Conversely, I found another doctor that I started to go see who is wildly interested in whys and wildly interested in and he'll be like, I don't know, but I'm going to go do a bunch of reading and we can find out, and that's just refreshing. And
Yeah.
so I will probably uh never go back to that urologist again who I went to because I'm again, if that's you, if you're that just like, I don't know, I don't care. Not that I don't know, I don't care. If you're that, I don't care about it.
I've
Then
studied enough that I know about it. Yeah.
well, all he cares about is, yeah, you got a kidney stone, I'll get it out.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go play golf or go fishing or something.
You're a
Yeah.
paycheck. Yeah.
Right. But those are the people that scare me. You talk about like there are doctors like that who are telling people to pull the plug because they know. I know what's going on. I got it all figured. I went to school. I got it all figured out. Brain dead, can't hear anything, doesn't even know you're here, no reaction to your voice whatsoever. That squeeze that you thought you got from the finger isn't that.
Muscles
It's
contracting.
muscles
Yeah.
contracting, and then
Atrophy and yeah.
fast forward to 2 weeks later, the person wakes up, they don't pull the plug, and they remember everything that was going on in the room. And I don't know if the doctor still cares at that point. If they still really realize that. And again, that might be attributable to maybe the doctor's right. Maybe there is no brain activity. Maybe that's just someone's spirit in the room who's absorbing the consciousness. It's absorbing this stuff. I don't know. Who knows? But the fact that we have enough of these, uh, uh, to your dad, with your dad, we have enough of these cases of people being in comas or being technically brain dead, where they remember things should be enough for people to go, okay, we're not pulling plugs anymore.
Yeah.
Like
I remember with my dad, they pulled my mom in, and I was with my sisters by the hospital. We're Brigham and Women's in Boston, and they're like, "Hey, it's been over a month. Like, this is the time we have to start getting paperwork done in case we have to pull the plug and all this stuff." And my mom's like, "Insurance, you know how insurance is. Like, you can't keep paying for all this stuff." And my mom goes, "You need to give him more time." And the doctor, who did the whole surgery, was open about his faith. He wore a crucifix, like just an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Other people on that team, or the kind of people you're talking about, super book smart, really didn't openly talk about a faith and religion, and they'd always see us pray. And so this lead doctor was like, "You know what? You're gonna get more time. Don't worry about it." I remember my sisters and I, my mom, we do like a circle around my dad in the bed, and we do like the bunch of Hail Marys and pray for the intercession of Mary to wake my dad up. I go off to school later that day later or so, back to college. My sisters are home. And then 2 days later, my dad wakes up. And like he vividly wakes up remembering the prayer and like all like this stuff like that, where it's like, if we didn't have a religion, and I don't want to alienate people who don't have a faith or believe in something like this, but if we were like, you know what, it's been a month, we tried our best, we prayed, didn't come, just whatever, shit out of luck. Sorry, Dad, love you. But the fact we did, and the fact that some of these doctors had major egg on their faces,
Hmm.
major. Like, well, it's
Yeah.
a miracle. It's got to be a miracle. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's okay to have that stuff. It's okay to be a really good doctor, but believe in miracles too, because we don't have all the answers. And
Right.
so, like, ever since then and stuff, I've always had like this. It's not a disdain for doctors, but it's for disdain for people that can't accept the fact that you don't have all the answers, and there might be a higher power driving some of these influences and some of these reactions and acts that come out of this stuff.
Well, I know we talked about faith earlier and how, you know, faith is having belief in something that you can't see, smell, taste,
Yeah,
or whatever. But I have had experiences, so I guess that does make faith a little easier. And I can say this: if there is anyone out there that is struggling in their life and they've tried everything else, try something that has to do with faith. I'm not saying it's Christianity. It can be whatever you want it to be. You can be whatever you're called. I'll tell you one thing, there's not nothing, there is
right. There's
definitely something
something. Yeah.
there is something at play that I can't explain because I've experienced it. And it doesn't answer all the questions, and it doesn't make, in some cases it doesn't fix all the problems in your life. It can fix some problems in your life if you need it, but um
And if you go too
it
far with some of it, it could cause more problems. Like there's
right.
some of those other side
Yeah,
of it.
well, yeah. Again, it's just I'm talking about a personal relationship with something greater than yourself,
Yeah.
and all I know is that when I plug into it, things happen for the good. Not always what I want, but things happen that lead to good things and lead to great places. And
Yeah.
so, um, it's there's so much we don't know, man.
Wild. We'll end it there, dude.
All right, let's end it for real.
End it for real. So what do you think about DNA splicing? Later. Bye.